The manager said, "Mrs. Whitcomb, if you don't like the rules, you can ask your family to take you home." I folded the napkin in my lap the way my mother taught me and answered, "Dear, the only thing going home today is your job." My name is Irene Whitcomb, but people who have time for softness call me Reenie. I am 82 years old, 5 feet and half a story, and I keep a silver thimble in my pocket as a reminder that even tender things can push back without drawing blood. I speak softly because walls gossip and I prefer to feed them only what they can digest. I spent 39 years as a school librarian and another 12 as a widow who learned that silence is not emptiness, it is a room where courage comes to change its shoes. I live at Juniper Hills Residential Care, which has a pretty name and a polite lobby and a problem with its soul. When my heart hiccuped last winter and my daughter insisted on somewhere supervised, I chose Juniper Hills because the brochure had a piano and a garden and a Sunday schedule with a watercolor class. I've learned that brochures are first drafts, and some people never edit. The first week was all handshakes and paperwork. The new manager, Mr. Dean Fletcher, shook my hand with 2 of his and looked me in the eyes without really landing. He wore a tie like he wanted it to believe in him. The C&A letters were kind and exhausted. The way people are when management talks about efficiency like it was a cat that doesn't scratch. The kitchen smelled like instant compassion and not enough butter. On Wednesday, they brought dinner without the peaches that were printed right there on the menu. Substitution, the server said. Cheeks apologizing. On Thursday, the thermostat in Holby blinked 82F while the desk said within range. On Friday, Mrs. Patel was told she'd used up her escort minutes for the week, so she couldn't have a second cup of tea in the courtyard. Escort minutes. That is a sentence that should confess itself. I do not begin wars. I keep minutes. I kept a library for decades. Records are simply stories with manners. The first thing I collected was temperature. I'd sat out from my room in the evening and passed the little wall sensors with their green faces. Like obedient children, I pressed my palm against the vents and felt the air sigh warm when it should have been steadfast. I noted time and place and my palm's opinion: 7:10 p.m., B block, stagnant, 9:05 p.m., dining hall. Moving but tepid. On an index card I slid into a deck with a rubber band. The second thing I collected was food. Menu promised grilled chicken and peaches and delivered grilled chicken and apologies. I do not mind substitutions. I mind disappearing ingredients and staff told to smile wider as if that were a garnish. I folded each weekly menu into a little paper boat and wrote what actually arrived on the underside. Peas instead of peaches, gravy thin as gossip, pudding cup x3 in 1 week. I did not make speeches, I stacked boats. The third thing I collected was words, the ones that said too much and the ones that said nothing where the law required a sentence. "We don't have a resident council," Mr. Fletcher said mildly when I asked. "It's not mandatory." He said it like weather, so I looked it up. It is astonishing what a person can do with a public library card and a daughter willing to print PDFs. State Regulation 326.14, I underlined it with a joy I cannot apologize for, said that a licensed facility shall not interfere with or discourage the formation of a resident council. Shall not. Those 2 words have rescued more people than sirens. I waited, collected, listened. I learned the schedule of the aides who cared beyond policy and the schedule of the manager who liked meetings better than rooms where people laid down to sleep. I learned that Carmen, who cleans, has a laugh that restores the strength of flagpoles, and that Leo, the night nurse, hums old boleros while he checks the meds cart because it keeps his hands honest. You may ask why I did not simply call my daughter and demand an exit. I could have. But I have lived long enough to know that some exits are a kind of theft. You take your good out of a place and leave the harm blooming, and besides, not everyone here could leave. So, minutes first, then meetings. I started with a T. Bring your own mug, the notice said. I slid it under doors and taped it to the elevator with a piece of blue painter's tape I carried like contour. A band, we gathered in the small library that smells of plastic plants and old romances. 10 of us at first, then 15. People who do not see themselves as activists will absolutely become statisticians if you ask about their portion size. Speak into the teapot, I told them. It will keep our secrets and pour them hot. We made a list. Temperature spikes after 8 p.m. No peaches 3 times promised. Shower schedules cut to save water, which in practice meant saving peril. Lights out enforced like a bedtime story nobody asked for. Medication rounds rushed. And Gloria, dear Gloria, who taught middle school for 30 years and could stare a hyena back into the bushes left in soiled sheets for an hour because the call light blinked without reply. Don't get the aides in trouble, Carmen whispered from the door, broom like a standard. It's not them. It rarely is, I said. We will be precise. I wrote our list on the backs of menus with a pencil I'd sharpened to a point of intent. Then I opened my little deck of index cards, the temperature minutes, the food substitutions, the time stamps. I watched the faces around the table begin to believe their own memory. That is the first miracle of any rebellion. Someone says me too and you discover you are not discussing ghosts. Now. I said, we will form what they said we don't have. We voted a simple I that felt like choosing weather. We named it the Resident Council because sometimes the correct name is the brave one. I walked our minutes to Mr. Fletcher in a manila folder that used to hold recipes. We met, I said. Gently. Here is our council's first report. He did not touch the folder. You cannot form a council without administration oversight. He lied pleasantly. Shall not interfere, I recited. Is not the same as shall babysit. He smiled without moving his eyes. Mrs. Whitcomb, these facilities are complex. It's best to let the professionals handle logistics. I taught 12 generations to find the index and make their own minds, I said. We will handle the minutes. He skimmed our report and found his refuge. We have had some staffing challenges, he said. As everywhere. I brought solutions, I replied, and slid him a second sheet. Staggered rounds, resident volunteers for dining service setup, thermostat audit with maintenance log visible. Post the menu and honor it or show substitutions at breakfast. These are not accusations, I said, they are small doors. He promised nothing and scheduled a town hall to dilute us. It is a classic strategy. Take a specific complaint and drown it in a general meeting with cookies. I went anyway. We all did. He stood at the front like a pulpit in a tie and used the word transparency 3 times as if it were a window he himself had washed. He invited questions and cut them with a butter knife of phrases. We hear you, we're working on it, budgetary realities. When he started suggesting that if funding were better, perhaps family members could choose to sponsor a premium meal, I thought of peaches. I thought of thermostats. I thought of Gloria staring at the ceiling with a wet sheet under her because the call light blinked to nobody. Sponsorship, I said, standing, is not a synonym for compliance. The room laughed a little because truth likes a giggle. He adjourned with briskness and the confidence of a man whose inbox agrees with him. So we escalated. Step 1. Paper. I mailed our minutes certified to 3 places in 3 separate envelopes. The State Ombudsman's Office, the licensing agency. And because my granddaughter taught me this trick, the corporate headquarters compliance email. Printed out on paper and sent via post, the way old gods like it. I attached a copy of 326.1 for with the shall not circled like the sun. Step 2. Witness. We placed a sign-in sheet beside the dining hall's thermostat with the heading, "Please record the time you notice." Discomfort. No complaints, no speeches, just a ledger that began to look like a chorus. Names in shaky script. 7:40 p.m. to warm. 8:10 p.m. sweating. 8:35 p.m. fan requested. The sheet filled. We made copies when Mr. Fletcher took it down. Step 3. Proof of peaches. The kitchen staff, bless them, are held hostage by distributors and budgets. I did not ask them to break rules, I asked them to keep the empty boxes for a week. We stacked them, pudding. We took a photograph with Carmen's phone of the stack next to the posted menu that said fresh fruit. We printed the photograph and put it in our folder. I titled it, perhaps too gleefully, The Pudding Pyramid, Step for Mercy. Every escalation needs a softness or it becomes a sermon. We restarted watercolor class in the quiet room with the broken blinds. We asked Leo to teach us the bolero he hums. We put Mrs. Patel in charge of a reading hour where no one was allowed to correct pronunciation and everyone was allowed to laugh if a sentence tripped. We made a community jar, quarters and cards. On the cards, "Thank you, Tasha, for coming early to fix the blanket. Thank you, Mike, for the heavier spoon that actually lifts soup." We used the jar to buy peaches at the farmer's market one Sunday and serve them sliced with dignity. We invited staff to share. And then, one morning at 10:22 a.m., the state ombudsman walked in with a notebook and the body of a woman who has seen every trick twice. She introduced herself to residents first. "This is how you know an office still remembers its oath." Fletcher appeared with a binder and a smile that had been waxed. He offered a conference room. She declined and asked to walk. She walked with Gloria to the call bell panel. She walked with Carmen down Hall B and stopped at the thermostat, where she placed her own hand beneath the vent and stood there silently for 1 full minute, eyes on nothing, listening to the air refuse. She walked with me to the library and asked for our minutes. "Before you read," I said, laying the folder like a child, "know that the aides are doing the work of 6 people with 4 hands. We will not be weaponizing them." "I know," she said, and it sounded like knowledge instead of phrase. "We do not punish the tired for the orders of the comfortable," she read. She took photographs of the pudding pyramid and the thermostat log and the menu promises. She asked for maintenance records. Mr. Fletcher produced them with reluctance disguised as efficiency. Several lines were blank where numbers should have been. She did not raise her voice. She wrote required corrective action in a script that meant business. Inspections produce 2 kinds of silence. The first is fear. The second is relief. We had the second dot in the afternoon. Corporate arrived. A woman with a blazer the color of a polite storm blew in with a notepad and a temper she kept on leash. She used words like an acceptable variance and immediate remediation. She asked for the resident council president. I stood. She blinked at my thimble and then took me seriously. "Mrs. Whitcomb," she said, "we take these matters very seriously. I prefer when you take them early," I said, and watched her mouth almost smile despite itself. It would make a better story if Mr. Fletcher had been marched out by the elbows that day. Life prefers procedure. He was placed on administrative leave pending review. We were given a new interim manager, Darla Nguyen, who had the look of a person who sets timers for bread because she wants it to be excellent, not because she is afraid of burning. She met with staff first, then residents, then the thermostat. "Thermostats," she said during her first meeting, "are not a metaphor, they are a promise." By evening, maintenance had recalibrated 3 units and admitted, sheepish, that the night setting had been adjusted to save energy. "Out," Darla said, gently but decisively. "Our energy is for people." The peaches arrived the next week. Not always the ripe, singing kind. I am not unreasonable, but real fruit, sliced and placed with respect. The menu board gained a new line in black marker. Substitutions posted by 10 a.m. Sometimes the substitution was stewed apples. Sometimes pears. No one rioted. "We are a reasonable nation if you stop lying." Gloria's call light was answered within 7 minutes on Tuesday night. I know because she called me after and cried on the phone for 15 seconds, then laughed for 30. Laughs are also minutes. I record them even if no one asks. Our resident council met every Thursday at 2. We set an agenda, temperature, meals, shower schedules, activity hours, maintenance requests. We invited staff to join for the second half, and they did, surprising themselves with how much they liked being asked what would help. Leo proposed staggered med rounds and a second cart borrowed from memory care for the 2 busiest hours. Tasha asked for non-skid spoons and got them. Carmen requested more mops that actually mop. The mops arrived with their fiber spines high. The hall smelled clean in a way that did not pretend. As for Mr. Fletcher, reviews are long sentences with a lot of commas. Weeks later, a notice appeared on the staff lounge corkboard. "We wish Mr. Fletcher well in his future endeavors." A replacement was announced after. There were rumors, misreported temperatures, budget line items that wore disguises, the word upcoding floating like a cloud you do not want to believe in. I do not chase rumors. I chase receipts. In the end, he left, and we did not clap, because pity is a discipline to. Our ward did not have a battlefield. It had a table. A long laminate table and a small library where people who have been told their time is past brought it roaring back by keeping minutes with care. We did not throw things. We threw paper. We did not scream. We invited witnesses. When victory came, it arrived wearing ordinary clothes, cooler nights, fruit that tasted like a decision, aides with schedules that did not ask them to be saints. I will tell you the best part. Though it does not wear fireworks well. On a Saturday in May, Darla came to the library with a stack of clipboards and a basket of cloth espins. "We're making a garden committee," she said, "and I am not in charge." We went outside to the patch of dirt the brochure had called a courtyard. We weeded, watered, labeled. Mrs. Patel bossed the mint. Carmen put basil where the sun minds its elders. Leo pushed the piano closer to the open door so his boleros could check on the tomatoes. That afternoon, my daughter visited and brought my great-grandson, Toby, who has eyelashes that could organize a small country. He ran his finger over the name steak I'd made out of a popsicle stick, Reenie peaches. He wrinkled his forehead. "Do peaches grow on sticks?" he asked. "On trees," I said. "But we place our faith where we can see it." We planted marigolds around the base for luck, and when the wind passed through, they nodded like old women who've decided to forgive the weather. Sometimes, now, when the evening slides in and the thermostats glow with the contentment of appliances doing their duty, I walk down Holby and lay my fingers under the vent. Cool air combs my skin. I stop at the dining room and look up at the menu board where substitutions are written like honest amendments. I watch Gloria sip tea outside for as long as she pleases. I stand by the door and hear laughter. Laughter is the sound buildings make when people are finally the priority. People ask what I did to win. I did not win. We corrected the narrative. I recorded minutes until the truth found its microphone. I wrote shall not in a hand no one could pretend not to read. I kept my thimble in my pocket and used it only to hold edges so the needle could do its work. I made a table big enough to seat indignation and mercy, and I told them both to eat. If you ask me whether I believe in revenge, I will say no. Revenge is an appetite that never learns its manners. I believe in records and gardens and thermostats that tell the truth. I believe in resident councils that begin with T and end with policy. I believe in aides who go home early for once because we demanded enough staff for them to breathe. I believe in pudding when it is on the menu and peaches when they there say they will be. Not because fruit is important, but because promises are. Last week, a new resident arrived, Mr. Rees, a retired machinist with wrists that remember careful work. He came to council, silent as a closed drawer, and sat. When the meeting ended, he tapped the table and said, "I didn't know we could do that. We can do more," I said, unlatching my thimble. "Bring your minutes." He smiled, small and dangerous, the good kind of dangerous that suggests a person has remembered their usefulness. And I felt that familiar warmth spread through the room, the kind that tastes like peaches and paperwork and air that finally keeps its word. So if any manager tells you, in a voice polished by trainings and memos, that if you do not like the rules you may ask your family to take you home, you can fold your napkin as I did, look them in the face, and say, "Home is wherever I decide to hold you accountable." Then invite your neighbors to tea. Sharpen your pencil and begin. Because mercy is not a rule. It is a resident. And at Juniper Hills, she has a chair with her name on it.